Hello and welcome to my channel. If you are a CNC router guy and use Vectric VCarve Pro like myself to create your files, you may want to know how you can use those files that you created with VCarve Pro with DesignSpark Mechanical and vice versa. In today's video is going to be, just talking about what you have to do. DesignSpark Mechanical does not allow for the import of a DXF file and an SVG file. And that was kind of disappointing for me to find that out because, DXF file's been around since December of 1982. So that's nearly 40 years. And I thought for sure that they would allow that, but they don't. But there is a pretty easy workaround, and that's what I'm going to be showing you today. Let's take a look at the VCarve Pro I've got open here. This is just a single part program. It's of a NEMA 23 spacer block that I cut on my CNC. It is 2.5 inches from right to left, and it is also 2.5 inches from top to bottom. And of course, I cut it out of 3/4 inch thick HDPE or high density polyethylene, so it would be 3/4 thick. So I'm going to show you how I would take this file and get it to where I could create a 3D model out of it using DesignSpark Mechanical. The first thing you'll notice is when I click on this, you can see that this file is not grouped. So I want to make sure before I go to save it with a DXF that I highlight all of this and then click the group. And then I can check it by just clicking on it here and seeing that it's all lit up. Another thing I want to show you is that if I check my job setup, you'll see that this is drawn in inches, which is the way I like to draw. So I'm going to leave that set on inches for right now. And what we're going to do is we're just going to highlight this whole part here. And so I'm going to come over here and hit File, Export, DXF, and then I'm going to come up here and I've got a, let's come over here to DesignSpark Mechanical Tutorials, and then I've got a folder set up called Test Files. So I've got this is the file name I have for this is single spacer block, and it's in inches. And I'm just going to select Save. So now I've exported that as a DXF. But if I come over here to DesignSpark Mechanical, and we'll click New Design, hit the Plan View, and then I'll go to File. Come over here to the test file folder, and I'll have to change this to all files, and I'll grab that DXF. And you see what happens. It just comes up with a warning saying you're trying to import an incompatible file type. So that DXF cannot be imported directly into DesignSpark Mechanical. So there is a little workaround, and I'm going to open up this other software called FreeCAD. And what I'm going to show you here is not going to cost anybody an extra nickel. This is totally free software, and I'm also not changing any settings in it. So it's going to be exactly like what it would be if you just download it and install it. So you don't have to worry about changing any settings. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to come over here with FreeCAD and go File, Import. And then I'm going to come back here to that test file folder. And here's the DXF that we created. And all we have to do is change the view because I want a top view like that. And now we're going to come over to Edit, come down and hit Select All. Okay, so now we're going to come over here and we're going to click File, Export. It's set for a step file, but let me come back here and set it for the same folder here, so we'll be able to find it. There's the test files, and this is going to be just the spacer block right there. So let's click OK. Now we can come back to our DesignSpark Mechanical, come up here to File, and here we see we have our spacer block step file. So we can open that, and it will import that in. But there is one little problem. It is because you saw I had that set in inches in VCarve Pro, but without changing anything in FreeCAD, it brings this into millimeters. So now instead of 2.5 inches from there to there, it now thinks it's 2.5 millimeters. So what we'll have to do is scale this. So we can hit select, and we can highlight this whole thing. Then we can hit pull. After the pull command comes up, we'll hit this little scale body right here, and we'll put a point to anchor it from. So we'll click right there, and then we'll come out here and pull this, hit our space bar, and we want to put 25.4. Okay. Now when we come and measure this, it should be 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. Okay, and now, of course, now that we have it the correct scale, we can come over here and hit select, highlight this whole thing, hit fill, then holding the control key down, we can highlight inside these holes. And then just hit delete. Now we can hit the home to spin it up there, hit pull, select this face, bring it up, hit the tab or space bar key rather, and then type in our thickness at 0.75. So there we have, going from a DXF file that's drawn in inches in VCarve Pro, take it to FreeCAD to import it in as a DXF, and then export it out as a step file, and then bring the step file into DesignSpark. And of course, like I said, I have to scale it from that. So that's one way to get that part. Now let's come back to VCarve Pro, and we'll look at this same part. If you don't want to have to scale it in DesignSpark Mechanical, there's one little trick you can use, and that is to come over here to the job setup and just change this from inches to millimeter and click OK. Now you'll also have to make sure that it's still grouped together. So there it's grouped together. And now I'm going to hit File, Export, DXF. And this time we're going to call this spacer block. We'll change this from inches to just put mm for millimeters, and we will save that. Now when we come back to our FreeCAD, we will start over with a new file. So we'll click New here. We'll go Import, and the DXF I want to import in now is the millimeter. So I'll click that. Again, we'll hit that to get the top view. Come over here to Edit, hit Select All, and then hit File, Export. And again, it's going to save this as a step file. So we'll just overwrite that last one we did. And now we have that exported as a step file. Now we'll come back to our, we'll go ahead and get rid of this one. Start off with a new one. Hit the plan view. And now we will come in and we'll bring that file in. And now we've got the spacer block step file that we just got from FreeCAD. And now you can see that it is a little bigger. So now it comes in by changing that in VCarve Pro from inches to millimeters and bringing it through FreeCAD like that to export it to a step file. It now brings it into DesignSpark Mechanical, the correct scale. So now all we have to do is hit fill here. Then we'll come back over here and hold the control key down and highlight these holes and get rid of that material. Hit delete. Then we can highlight this face, spin it up like this, hit pull, bring this up, and put our 3/4 dimension there. We have another way. This way is slightly easier, I guess. Depending on how you want to do it, you can either change from inches to millimeters in VCarve Pro, or you could leave it in inches and just scale it once you get it in DesignSpark. Either way is pretty easy. Both ways work. I guess it would be just a matter of personal preference. So that's two ways to get this part into from VCarve Pro to DesignSpark Mechanical. And now let me show you a third way that may be even easier yet. And for this example, I'm back in my VCarve Pro. And for this example, I'm going to highlight all of this. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to ungroup it. And you can see now that it's not grouped. These are all separate things. But I wanted to do this just to show you that when you're using saving it as an SVG, it doesn't have to be grouped. And what we'll do is we'll just draw a box around all of this, highlight everything, and then we'll come up here to File, Export, and now we're going to go to an SVG, which is Scalable Vector Graphic. And we're going to click that. And this says single spacer block in inches. And it'll have an SVG extension. So we'll save that in the test files folder. Now we'll come over to the FreeCAD. We'll get rid of this one and start fresh. We'll wipe out all of these. Just start with a new one. All right, so we'll come over here to FreeCAD and we'll hit File, Import, and we want to select the single spacer block inches that has the extension SVG file. We'll click Open, and we want to select that we want the SVG as geometry. Select that, and just click Yes on that. And here it comes in. We'll hit the top view again. Then once again, just come to Edit, hit Select All, and then come back over to File and hit Export. And again, we're saving this as a step file. So we'll overwrite this one yet again. And then if we come back to our DesignSpark Mechanical, I'll get a new file going here. And now we will open up that step file again that we just created with FreeCAD. Click Open. And once again, now that we're using the SVG, like I said, this is probably the easiest of the three methods because it's coming in the right scale right off the bat. So we can again hit the fill, hold our control key down, and get rid of this little material here inside the holes. Hit delete, select this face, spin it around, hit pull this up, hit the space bar, and then again put in our 3/4 dimension. And there we have our spacer block right there. So that is three ways to go from a file that you have in VCarve Pro and bring it into DesignSpark Mechanical. Now, if you're wanting to go the other direction and you've drawn something in a 3D model like this in DesignSpark and you want to bring it into VCarve Pro, with VCarve Pro, it will accept the DXF as an import. So you want to, if you wanted to import this, you have to remember that you don't need a 3D version, view. You just need to highlight this and hit the plan view. And this is what you would want to see. And then you come over here to export options and come down here to a 2D AutoCAD DXF. And we're going to put this as, I'm just going to put DSM DXF. Let's see, let's just put DSM spacer block. And again, it's in the test files here. So I'll save that. And now if I come back to VCarve Pro, and we'll go and open a new file for that. We'll start off with a new file and save that. And now we'll come to File, Import Vectors. There's the test file. Here's that DSM spacer block file. Hit OK. And there it is. Now let's do a quick couple of measurements on this thing. Make sure it came in the right scale. There's 2.5 that way. And there's 2.5 that way. So that is the correct scale. I guess the reason it looked bigger is because this is, yeah, that's set for 10 by 10 instead of 3 by 3 like I had it. The other one. So if I hit that, there we go. Now it looks the same. Okay. Another way you can import a file from DesignSpark Mechanical to VCarve Pro is when I come back here, I'm going to open up another little file that I made, and I drew up this little spindle the other day. And this is, again, this is a DesignSpark file or a .rs doc. And you can come over here to export and come down here to actually where it says 3D print for STL. We're just going to create an STL file out of this. And we'll save this as spindle 2 inside that test files. Click save. And now we'll come back to our VCarve Pro and we'll hit new. And we're going to say, well, if we're going to do a spindle, we're going to call this a rotary for a rotary axis. It could also be a double-sided file if you wanted to do something like that. And we'll click OK here. Now we want to come to model, import component or 3D model, and then I can click that spindle, hit OK, and there it is in our piece of material there. Let me come up here and change this view. We'll add the auto wrapping view, and then we'll come over here, and I'm just going to use one tool here. Okay, so if we want to preview this, we can hit reset preview and then preview all toolpaths. And it will go through and show the simulation in VCarve Pro. And there's the spindle straight from DesignSpark Mechanical as an STL file. Imports right into VCarve Pro and works great. Okay, you might be asking, Dave, why would you want to bring files from VCarve Pro into DesignSpark Mechanical? Why would you want to create a 3D model with those files that you've made? And the answer is really because it makes it really easy to make an assembly, something that you can't really do in VCarve Pro. It's basically for drawing pretty much flat things that you're going to cut on the router and things like that. You can import 3D models like a spindle or something like that, but you cannot draw a 3D model in VCarve Pro. You would have to upgrade to Aspire for that. So having another alternative, especially a free alternative, because DesignSpark is free, would make it where it's pretty nice to be able to bring something in and model it. Here's just an example of something that I've modeled. And of course, my first rule of CAD, and it should be everybody's first rule of CAD, is never draw the same thing twice. So if you've got something that you've already drawn in VCarve Pro, it's always best to try to figure out a way, use it, even if you have to use a little workaround to get the file in there. But if you've already drawn things, you want to save time, not have to draw it all again in a different kind of software. So all of these parts were DXF files, and I could do it either way. I could either bring the DXF file in from VCarve Pro, just like I've shown here, and create this assembly from that, or I could go to my SolidWorks where all these parts were originally drawn and just save them as a step file and bring them in. And if you look up here in the structure tree, you see that by pulling these in, this was like a sub-assembly. So it's got all these parts already in here. So really saves a lot of time just to be able to take it from something else where it's already been drawn once and bring it in and use it again. All right, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you got something out of this. I just kind of wanted to show how VCarve Pro and DesignSpark can kind of work together. Does take a little bit of a workaround with FreeCAD, but fortunately that software is free as well, so it doesn't cost you a nickel to be able to get these other files to where they will work with DesignSpark Mechanical. So if you got anything out of this video, please leave it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel already, please think about subscribing and make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit that little bell so you get a notification every time I upload a new video. And until the next one, thank you very much for watching.